So today's video or today's audio log, it's easier to do this if I know that I'm not going to necessarily upload it to YouTube. I'm going to just record every day and try and see, what we can glean from it. And if I run across anything interesting, I can always clip it and put it into some monologue. So today, what I've been looking at the past few days and trying to learn by heart actually is this poem by Wordsworth called Nature and the Poet. It's suggested by a picture of Peel Castle in a storm painted by Sir George Beaumont. Now, it'd be pretty cool to go home and look up the actual picture when I get home, because I'm not aware of Peel Castle or of like the painting. But first of all, we'll just read through it. I was thy neighbour once, thou rugged pile. 4 summer weeks I dwelt inside of thee. I saw thee every day, and all the while thy form was sleeping on a glassy sea. So pure the sky, so quiet was the air, so very like was day to day. Whene'er I looked, thy image still was there. It trembled, but it never passed away. How perfect was the calm! It seemed no sleep, no mood which season takes away or brings. I could have fancied that the mighty deep was even the gentlest of all gentle things. Ah, then if mine had been the painter's hand to express what then I saw, and add the gleam, the light that never was on land or sea, the consecration and the poet's dream. I would have planted thee, thou hoary pile, amid a world how different from this, beside a sea that could not cease to smile, on tranquil land beneath a sky of bliss. A picture had it been of lasting ease, Elysian quiet without toil or strife, no motion but the moving tide, a breeze, or merely silent nature's breathing life. Such, in the fond illusion of my heart, such picture would I at that time have made, and seen the soul of truth in every part, a steadfast peace that might not be betrayed. So once it would have been, 'tis so no more. I have submitted to a new control. A power is gone which nothing can restore. A deep distress had humanized my soul. Not for a moment could I now behold a smiling sea and be what I have been. The feeling of my loss will ne'er be old. This which I know, I speak with mind serene. Then Beaumont, friend, who would have been the friend if he had lived, of whom I deplore. This work of thine I blame not but commend, this sea in anger and that dismal shore. 'Tis a passionate work, yet wise and well. Well chosen is the spirit that is here. That hulk which labours in the deadly swell, this rueful sky, this pageantry of fear. And this huge castle standing here sublime. I love to see the look with which it braves, cased in the unfeeling armour of old time. The lightning, the fierce wind, and the trampling waves. Farewell, farewell the heart that lives alone, housed in a dream, at distance from the kind. Such happiness, wherever it be known, is to be pitied, for 'tis surely blind. But welcome fortitude and patient cheer, and frequent sights of what is to be born, such sights, or worse, as are before me here. Not without hope, we suffer and we mourn. So, the throat is dangerously dry, given our present global circumstances. But let's see what we can glean from the first few stanzas. So Wordsworth starts off where he says, I was thy neighbour once, thou rugged pile. When I was thinking about this earlier, I thought of neighbour as brother, but like thy neighbour once would mean that Wordsworth places himself into the calm sea. The form was sleeping on a glassy sea. It kind of suggests that Wordsworth, when he was younger, was also asleep on this glassy sea. And obviously, when we say glassy sea, fragile. So pure the sky, so quiet was the air, so very like was day to day. In that kind of, I guess, sleep of unreality, the sleep of youth. You talk about the urgency of youth, but youth can be in some ways asleep, in that you think it's going to go on and on forever. Time is different. And okay, not every day is the same, but when you feel that that life is going to go on the same way forever without kind of worry or toil or struggle, every day kind of is the same, in the sense of you can spend your time doing whatever you want. There's no consequence. You don't have to choose. You can start again, start anytime you want. No mood which season takes away. And we see here the first connotation of a mood, the connection of the mood with the seasons. And seasons are obviously in this poem the first sign of kind of nature, and we're we're described with, or we're confronted with Wordsworth, who might have thought about the mighty deep, which was the gentlest of all gentle things, so it's kind of again saying under the glassy sea there's a mighty deep, with kind of more lurking below than you know of. And then so in this first picture, he's looking at the painting, and he's looking at the painting, and he remembers, and almost he sees the castle as a personification of a state of mind, of calm, and so he talks about how if at that time he'd actually been the painter, he would have painted it calm and light, and in contrast to how Beaumont has painted it, which is Beaumont has painted it rugged and hoary, and so it's unclear whether Wordsworth, for me anyway, it's unclear whether Wordsworth in these early stanzas is talking about that he actually seen the real castle, or whether he saw it differently. But at the start, we're confronted with an image anyway. I would have planted thee, thou hoary pile, amid a world how different from this. So that's, in contrast to the way Beaumont has painted it, which suggests that, Beaumont has painted it, amid a sea of turmoil, and Wordsworth is looking at it almost as if like the castle has seen change, the painting has seen change, and he once was the neighbour of the castle before it. He once identified with this castle before it in a previous state. So Wordsworth says that back then he would have painted it differently. On tranquil land beneath a sky of bliss, it would have been perfect, without any toil or strife, Elysian quiet, kind of heavenly, but no motion but the moving tide, a breeze, or merely silent nature's breathing life, which is, the forces of nature as benevolent, wholly benevolent, and the moments in nature that Wordsworth would have found that are tranquil. So once it would have been to sow no more, I have submitted to a new control. It's interesting in contrast, in regard to the tempestuousness of the painting, when he was elevated and young, Wordsworth would have painted the picture as calm, and now that he's older, he's controlled himself to the level where he would not see it that way. He can't look at things that way. Not for a moment could I now behold the smiling sea and be what I have been. Feeling of my loss will ne'er be old. This which I know I speak with mind serene. So his mind is serene. His mind is calm. His mind is now under control. As by contrast, he realizes that the forces of nature and life are actually sort of out of control. So identifies with Beaumont, who would have been the friend if he had lived, of him whom I deplore. Now, I think Wordsworth may be speaking of his earlier self as both something that he feels the loss of and a kind of person that he deplores. And Wordsworth doesn't blame Beaumont for bringing this kind of dichotomy in his own character to the fore. And yet he says that the work of Beaumont has passion in it, but it's wise passion. It's well chosen what he has chosen to convey. He's conveyed the hulk which labours in the deadly swell, the rueful sky, and the pageantry of fear. Pageantry of fear, the motions of it, the dramatisation of fear, which in its way is can be artificial too. But this huge castle standing here sublime, he confesses that he loves to see the way that it weathers the storm, cased in the unfeeling armour of old time. The fortitude of the castle is now more interesting than subdued nature. The struggle in the face of lightning, fierce wind, and trampling waves. And so he says, farewell, farewell to the heart that lives alone, housed in a dream at distance from the kind with a capital K there, meaning possibly kind people, but also your kin. You're kind of at distance from the kind, as in from humanity, which would go back to that line earlier on where it says the deep distress had humanized his soul, which is that Wordsworth's earlier occupation with nature was kind of inhuman. It was the realm of human fantasy, escapism, and it's so far removed from what Beaumont is conveying in the picture and what Wordsworth feels now as an older man. And so he says in a weird way in these last lines, it's not strange, but he says farewell to his youth. Such happiness wherever it be known is to be pitied, for it is surely blind, which is, the youth is wasted on the young line. They don't know what's coming, according to Wordsworth. It's sort of a truism. It's kind of true to say. But welcome fortitude and patient cheer, and frequent sights of what is to be born like carried, which is, a welcoming of reality, which, the young person. Now, young people get older before their time sometimes, so it's not. It's not so much a question of age, but a question of a state of mind of innocence, which is gone, and you see that innocence even in there's the Philip Larkin poem where he talks about the troops, the people marching off towards the First World War, and how there'll never be innocence like that again. It can be a mass psychological thing, but what Wordsworth begins to admire is, as I said, the fortitude of the castle that he earlier identified with. The rugged pile, the heat, the body's degradation. Such sights or worse are before me here. And yet then I think what is kind of pleasant about the last line is this is not without hope. We suffer and we mourn, which is, to suffer and mourn without hope is presumably a bit different to suffer and mourn with hope. Possibly with hope that it means something, or that it will come to mean something. And for Wordsworth, I think towards the second half of the poem, it's that art goes on. Art shows a way that you can cope with time and human suffering. And it's a different type of art maybe to what you look at when you're in your formative years. You look at it for different reasons, you want different things from it. And even now, we're in a strange state of affairs where the freedoms that we had, that we would consider will go on forever, the very visual of the very idea, put into practice that they can be shut down even temporarily is an immediate threat to their foundation, and of course some people will, as I said before, some people will lock themselves away and kind of try to escape into the land of fantasy. They'll try to create for themselves using imagery this calm, glassy sea, but it's sort of a fool's errand. And what we really want right now is sort of fortitude, and we want to be able to look at reality without crumbling into it, which is different from wanting to look away from it and be distracted. That would be my sort of current take on the poem. But the funny thing about it is that this poem really stuck out to me only in the past maybe two or 3 weeks before any of the current news cycle had happened, and I'm out here, looking at the hills, and the hills that are still intact, and so old. And there's sort of a new appreciation there, because you've been broken out now of your sleep and your kind of day-to-day efforts to kind of continue going until real life starts. And there's a story by Ted Hughes about Grubby. I'm not sure what the poem is called. I think it's called The Harvest. And the character in the story, he has a faint in the middle of the field, and he feels like he's going to be ran over by the harvester. Sliced to ribbons in it, and the way that it's described is it can happen. It can happen, and it is happening. It's happening right now. Which is that before you always think that these things can't happen, that the sea is tranquil, that there isn't anything below the surface, and it creates a stagnancy of its own. And I must read more Wordsworth and see if there's anything in there about the kind of the stagnancy, when he would plunge himself into the outdoors, into nature, trying to find these kind of moments of clarity. What was he trying to escape? It's probably not that distant to the same reason why people go to places in nature today. So I think I'm happy with that. I would like to learn the poem by heart. I have it down most of the way through, but it's definitely a fascinating poem, and one that I'm going to go back to and read and reread. It's it's actually one of the few that's in Palgrave's Golden Treasury. So that's a mark of its merit, I suppose. But yeah, so I think I'll leave it there for today. I'm going to try to do one of these every day. So yeah, good luck.